Welcome to The Explainer. Have you ever caught yourself feeling like the real world is, I don't know, somehow thinner or just less vibrant than the one inside your head? Look, almost everyone daydreams, right? But for some of us, that imagined world becomes so incredibly detailed, so emotionally rich, and just all-consuming that real life kind of pales in comparison. Today, we're unraveling the psychology of fake scenarios and daydreaming, and we're going to find out exactly what your mind is really up to.
Okay, let's dive right into this. Be honest. Are you giving an imaginary award speech in the shower right now? Or, maybe you just finished one? Hey, we have absolutely all been there, and I want to validate that right out of the gate. It's just such an incredibly relatable, everyday scenario. You're washing your hair, and suddenly, boom, you're accepting an Oscar or a Pulitzer with the absolute perfect mix of humility, emotion, and charm.
Or, okay, how about this one? Are you mentally rehearsing an argument with someone who wronged you literally 3 whole years ago? You're just walking to your car, completely lost in this totally different version of your life where everything works out exactly how you wanted and you deliver the absolute perfect comeback. Like, we can spend hours doing this. And if you've always done this, part of you probably suspects it might be a bit of a problem. Well, today we're going to find out for sure.
Section 1. The brain on fake scenarios.
To start off, we really need to understand the underlying neuroscience here. We're going to look at exactly what happens inside the physical structures of your brain when you construct these vivid fantasies. And this brilliantly illustrates something wild. Whether it's a real event or a fake scenario, your brain activates the amygdala and releases dopamine either way. Your brain doesn't treat your daydream as just some neat little fiction. No, it treats it as a full-blown simulation. Your visual cortex generates the images, your motor cortex fires up, and your emotional centers respond as if it's genuinely happening right then and there. It delivers real neurochemical rewards, like a massive hit of dopamine, without requiring any of the actual difficult real-world effort. Pretty crazy, right?
So the engine behind all of this is something called the default mode network, or DMN. Think of it as the brain's internal processing system for imagination and mental simulation. It naturally activates whenever you aren't focused on an outside task. But for people who spend hours lost in fake scenarios, the DMN is not just active, it actually becomes dominant. It literally turns into the absolute preferred environment for their brain to operate in.
Section 2. Why we keep daydreaming. So why do some people just mind wander occasionally, while others build these elaborate, ongoing mental worlds that they basically live in every single day? Well, it comes down to 3 main factors of escapism. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how these pieces fit together. First, there's an emotional need. The fantasy is essentially filling a real-world deficit, kind of like a lack of connection, validation, or safety. Basically, the bigger the gap in your real life, the richer that internal world becomes to compensate. Second is early temperament. For highly imaginative kids growing up in unpredictable or unsafe environments, escaping inward was a coping mechanism. It was a survival habit that simply deepens over time. And third, dopamine sensitivity. Some people just have highly reactive dopamine systems. They literally get a higher, purer reward from imagined perfect events than they do from messy, real-world ones that come with effort and, uncertainty. Section 3. The 4 fantasy types. But what are we actually dreaming about when we do this? The content of these fake scenarios isn't random at all. Actually, scratch that, it's highly specific. It clusters into distinct patterns that reveal exactly what your brain is hungry for. The first pattern is fantasy resolution. This is when you replay real conflicts, but this time with much better outcomes. You're looking to find emotional resolution. Psychologists call this ruminative processing. We basically cycle through old arguments over and over, kind of like a tongue returning to a sore tooth, just desperately seeking a sense of closure that reality simply never provided us. The second type is the success fantasy. This is where you imagine being recognized, achieving ultimate significance, and finally reaching that glorious moment of arrival. The brain uses these vivid images, remember that shower award speech we talked about earlier, to fill the painful gap between where you currently are in life and the celebrated, wildly successful version of yourself that finally made it. Next up is the connection fantasy. This involves imagining these deep, perfect relationships where you are truly understood and loved exactly as you need to be. Honestly, these are often the absolute hardest fantasies to give up. And why is that? Because real relationships have friction, they have flaws and imperfections. But the imagined ones, they perfectly, seamlessly meet our emotional needs without any of the messy reality attached. And the fourth pattern is the escape fantasy. This is when you construct a completely different life. Maybe it's a different job or a new city or just a totally different version of yourself, purely to exit your current one. When your everyday life feels way too small or you just feel incredibly stuck, your brain conveniently constructs a totally new exit strategy for you to visit over and over again. Section 4. When imagination becomes maladaptive. Let's move on to this and see how this builds. So, where exactly is the line between healthy, creative mind-wandering and problematic avoidance? This brings us to a really fascinating concept identified by psychologist Eli Sommer, maladaptive daydreaming. It's an extreme pattern where your fantasy worlds actually begin competing with reality, causing you significant distress. Now, while it's not an official clinical diagnosis just yet, it is a very real documented phenomenon, and it frequently co-occurs with OCD, ADHD, anxiety, and trauma histories. Basically, the imaginary world starts winning out over the real one. The sheer volume of time consumed here is staggering. We're talking sometimes up to 8 hours. That is how much of a person's day can completely disappear into these elaborate mental storylines. And sometimes it's triggered by something as simple and common as putting on a pair of headphones and listening to music. Literally, huge portions of your waking life can simply vanish into the simulation. No way, right? But it happens. So the crucial point here is that the true metric of the problem isn't actually the sheer amount of time you spend daydreaming. It's the function it's serving. Look at the healthy function. It's used for rest, creative play, and emotional processing. If it's doing that, it's working for you. But the unhealthy function, that's when it is used for avoidance. It's when it starts substituting for real action, and when it leaves you feeling empty and worse off afterwards instead of refreshed. Section 5. How to reclaim reality. If you're listening to this and resonating with that unhealthy side, don't panic. I want to reassure you right now, your vivid imagination is actually an incredible asset. And the whole goal of this explainer is to help you redirect that power, not destroy it. So here is a highly empowering 3-step framework to take back control. Step 1, identify the unmet emotional need. The scenario is just a symptom, right? The need underneath it is the real information. Ask yourself, where do you feel invisible or unsafe in real life? Step 2, introduce a 30-second friction pause before drifting. When you feel that automatic urge to slip away, just pause. This puts your prefrontal cortex back in the driver's seat, allowing you to choose rather than just slide into it. And step 3, point your imagination at real-world problems. Use those incredible mental simulations deliberately. Point them at creative work, strategic planning, or problem solving. It's the exact same muscle, just pointed at reality. I want you to remember something absolutely crucial before we wrap up. You're not broken, and you're not weak. You are someone with a brain that is desperately trying to give you what you need. Your brain is just using the absolute best, most immediate tool it has available to try and find love, success, and freedom. That's actually a really beautiful thing, but it is a tool you can learn to wield intentionally. Which leaves us with one final provocative question for you to ponder today. Will you keep living in the simulation, or will you build something in the real world that your brain doesn't need to escape from? It's your choice to make. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. If you want to keep discovering what your mind is really trying to say, make sure to subscribe to Wired Minds. We'll see you next time.